A child's wedding day is one of the most important days in a parent's life. It is a day of pride, of joy, and of happy tears. You watch the small child you raised become a husband or a wife, and your heart is full. But what happens when your family is broken? What happens when a happy day is filled with the sad ghosts of the past? This is a story about a day like that. A day that was supposed to be a celebration, but that started with a moment of terrible cruelty. I would like to know, what do you think is the most important gift a parent can give their child? Please, share your thoughts in the comments. My name is Susan, and this is the story of my son's wedding. My marriage to my ex-husband, Robert, ended 10 years ago. It was a very painful divorce. He was a rich and powerful man, and he left me for a younger, richer woman. After the divorce, he used his money and his influence to turn many of our old friends against me. He made it seem like the end of our marriage was my fault. I was left with very little money and one precious thing, our son, Michael. I raised Michael by myself. We lived in a small apartment, and I worked 2 jobs to pay our bills. It was a hard life, but it was a life full of love. Michael was my whole world. We were a team. His father, Robert, would see him sometimes. He would buy him expensive gifts, but he was not there for the everyday things. He was not there for the sick nights, the difficult homework, or the parent-teacher meetings. I was. I was the one who was always there, and my son and I had a special, unbreakable bond. Now, my son was a grown man. He was 25 years old, and he was getting married. He was marrying a wonderful woman named Emily. I was so happy for them. The wedding, however, was not in my world. It was in his father's world. Robert and his new wealthy wife paid for everything. It was a huge, glamorous event at a very expensive country club. On the day of the wedding, I felt so out of place. I had bought a new dress, the most beautiful one I could afford. But it was simple compared to the designer gowns of Robert's new wife and all her friends. They were all so rich, so perfect. They looked at me with their polite, cold smiles. To them, I was just Robert's poor old ex-wife, the mother, but not an important one. The only thing that made me feel strong was the love for my son. When I saw him at the altar, looking so handsome and so happy, my heart was full of pride. After the beautiful ceremony, we all went to the reception. There was a big, beautifully decorated table at the front of the room. The head table. I saw the little name cards. There was a place for the bride's parents. There was a place for Mr. Robert Sterling and Mrs. Sterling. And there was no place for me. They had not set a seat for the mother of the groom. I was so confused and so deeply hurt. I looked around the room, and I saw my ex-husband, Robert, standing nearby, talking to some important guests. I waited for a quiet moment, and I walked up to him. My voice was a small, trembling whisper. "Robert," I said, "there is no seat for me at the head table." He looked at me, and his eyes were as cold as ice. He did not want me to make a scene at his perfect, expensive party. He leaned in, and he said, his voice a low, cruel whisper so only I could hear, "That table is for family, Susan. My new wife and I are the hosts. You are just a guest. Frankly, you don't belong here. Find a table in the back." His words were a knife in my heart. He was trying to erase me from my own son's wedding day. I just stood there, completely heartbroken, watching my son laugh with his new wife across the room, with no idea what his father had just said to me. My ex-husband's cruel words were a physical blow. I felt the air leave my lungs. For a moment, I just stood there, in the middle of the beautiful, loud party, feeling completely and totally alone. My first thought was to protect my son's happiness. I did not want to make a scene. I did not want to ruin his perfect day. So, I did what my ex-husband told me to do. I turned around, and I started to walk towards the back of the room, to find a dark, empty table where I could be invisible. My eyes were full of tears, and I was trying so hard not to let them fall. But my son, Michael, knows my heart better than anyone in the world. He was standing across the room, talking with his new wife, Emily. But he was also watching me. He saw my face. He saw the way I was walking, with my shoulders down and my head low. He saw my pain. I saw his happy smile disappear. He said something to his wife, and then he started to walk towards me, his face full of concern. He met me in the middle of the room. "Mom?" he said, his voice quiet. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" I tried to lie. I tried to put on a brave face for him. "I'm fine, sweetheart," I said, trying to smile. "I'm just a little emotional. It's a big day." But he knew me. He looked into my eyes, and he saw the lie. He saw the tears. "Mom, tell me the truth," he said, his voice firm. "What happened?" I could not lie to my son. I could not pretend anymore. My voice was a broken whisper. "Your father," I said. He said there is no place for me at the head table. He told me to go and sit in the back." I watched my son's face change. The happy, gentle groom disappeared. In his place was a man I had never seen before. A man with a cold, quiet anger in his eyes. An anger that was for me. An anger that was for his father. He looked over at his father, who was laughing and drinking champagne with his rich friends. Then he looked at me, at his mother, the woman who had raised him, the woman who was being treated like a stranger at her own son's wedding. And then he did something that I will never, ever forget. He took my hand. "No," he said, his voice not loud, but full of a new, strong power. "You will not sit in the back. You are my mother." He held my hand tightly, and he started to walk, pulling me gently with him. We walked away from the back of the room, and we walked directly towards the head table. People started to notice. The conversation started to quiet down. Everyone was watching us. We reached the head table. My ex-husband, Robert, saw us coming. His smile disappeared. He looked angry that I was making a scene. "Michael," he said, in a low, warning voice. "What do you think you are doing?" Michael did not let go of my hand. He looked his father right in the eye. His voice was cold and clear. "My mother tells me she does not have a seat at this table." Robert's face got red. "This is not the time to discuss this," he hissed. But Michael did not back down. "This is the only time," my son said. "She is my mother. The woman who raised me. The woman who worked 2 jobs to give me a life. She will not sit in the back of my wedding. She will sit here, at the head table." Robert's new wife looked so uncomfortable. The bride's parents were just watching, their eyes wide. Without another word, Michael walked to the empty space next to his new wife, Emily. He took the fancy, decorative flower arrangement from the center of the table and he put it on the floor. He pulled a chair from a nearby table and he placed it in the new empty space, a place of honor. He pulled the chair out for me. "Sit, Mom," he said. I sat down, and then he did one more thing. He leaned down in front of everyone, and he kissed me on the cheek. "I love you," he whispered. The war was over, and my son was my hero. My son Michael sat me down in that chair, in a place of honor at the head table. Then he walked to the small stage where the band was playing. He took the microphone. The entire grand ballroom went completely silent. 500 guests stopped talking, and they all looked at him. I could see my ex-husband Robert at the other end of the table. His face was a mask of cold, silent fury. He was so angry that his son was making a scene at his perfect, expensive party. Michael looked out at the crowd. He was so calm, so strong. He was not an angry boy. He was a good man, making a stand. "Good evening, everyone," he said, his voice clear and steady. "Thank you all for being here to celebrate with Emily and me. Before we continue with the party, there is one very important person I need to honor tonight." He turned, and he looked directly at me. He smiled a smile that was so full of love, it took my breath away. "I want to talk about my mother, Susan," he said. The whole room was listening to his every word. For most of my life, it was just the two of us. She worked 2 jobs so I could have a good life. She was at every school event. She helped me with my homework after a long, 10-hour day of work. She was my mother and my father. She was my hero. Everything that is good in me, my kindness, my strength, my character, it all comes from this one amazing woman. He raised his champagne glass. "So I want my first toast as a married man to be for the first woman I ever loved. To my mother. Thank you for everything, Mom. You are the reason I am the man I am today. I love you." For a moment there was a stunned silence. And then the room erupted in the loudest, warmest, and most wonderful applause I have ever heard. They were all standing up. They were all clapping for me. I just sat there, tears of pure, happy pride streaming down my face. I looked at Robert. He was trapped at his own table, forced to listen as his son honored the woman he had tried to erase. The most beautiful moment came right after. My new daughter-in-law, Emily, walked over to me. She had tears in her eyes, too. She knelt down and gave me a warm, tight hug. "You have raised the most wonderful man in the world, Susan," she whispered in my ear. "I am so proud to be your daughter." In that one moment, I had not just kept my son, I had gained a daughter. The rest of the night was like a dream. I was not the poor, forgotten ex-wife anymore. I was the proud, beloved mother of the groom. So many people came to my table to tell me what a wonderful son I had, what a beautiful speech he had given. Robert and his new wife stayed at their end of the table. They were the ghosts now. They were the outsiders. Later, the music began for the mother-son dance. Michael came and took my hand. He led me to the dance floor. As we danced, he held me close. "I'm sorry if I embarrassed you, Mom," he said. I looked up at my son, at his kind, handsome face. "Oh, my sweet boy," I said, my voice full of a happy, shaking emotion. "You did not embarrass me. You made me the proudest mother in the world. You are a good, good man, Michael." As we danced, I knew that all the hard years, all the lonely nights, all the sacrifices, they were all worth it. I had done a good job. I had raised a king. The rest of my son's wedding reception was one of the happiest nights of my life. The dark cloud of my ex-husband's cruelty had been blown away by the bright, strong light of my son's love. I was not an outsider anymore. I was the proud mother of the groom, and my new, wonderful daughter-in-law, Emily, never left my side. We laughed and we talked, and it felt like I had known her forever. My son had not just chosen a wife. He had chosen a new, kind, and beautiful heart to add to our small family. My ex-husband, Robert, and his new wife did not stay for the whole party. They left early, without saying goodbye. I saw them leave. He looked like a king who had just lost his kingdom. And in a way, he had. He had all the money in the world, but he had lost the respect of his own son, and that was a price he could never pay to get back. After that day, everything was different. My son's loyalty had redrawn the map of our family. The center of our family was no longer his father's big, cold house. It was the new, small, warm home that Michael and Emily were building together, and I was a central, welcome, and cherished part of it. They would invite me for dinner every Sunday. I would help Emily plant flowers in her new garden. We became a new, happy family of 3. A few years later, I became a grandmother. My granddaughter, Lily, is the new light of my life. Our Sundays are now filled with the happy, messy joy of a small child. Sometimes, I sit in my son's happy, noisy home, and I watch him with his wife and his daughter. I see the good, kind man he is, the wonderful husband and father he has become, and my heart is so full of a quiet, deep pride. I spent 10 years after my divorce feeling small. I felt like the poor ex-wife, the one who had lost. I thought my ex-husband, with all his money and his power, had won. But on my son's wedding day, I learned the truth. My ex-husband's money could buy a big, fancy party, but it could not buy loyalty. It could not buy character. It could not buy love. The investment I had made in my son was not with money. It was with my time, my heart, my sacrifices, and my unconditional love. And my return on that investment was a treasure beyond any price. It was the love and respect of my child. My son did not just take my hand on his wedding day. He showed me, and the whole world, that a mother's love is the most powerful and most valuable thing of all. If this story about a mother's love and a son's loyalty touched your heart, please give this video a like. What is the most important lesson your mother or your son has taught you? Share your story in the comments. For more emotional English stories about the true meaning of family, please be sure to follow our channel.